I'm curious about the biggest challenge you've had to overcome personally in your marriage that you're really proud of that you overcame in the last. I don't know if you've been married for 50 years, but I know you wrote that you've loved your wife for 50 years. But what's the hardest thing that you had to overcome as a man or a human being in this relationship that you're extremely proud of that you did in fact overcome it, or you've improved upon it in a major way?
I don't know if I'm proud about it. Proud of it. Like the success at these things seems so unlikely and so dependent on good luck in some sense that, mostly if things go well for me, I'm generally grateful that I escaped from the axe, rather than being proud of it. We did a good job of working through our attitude towards how we were going to treat our children. So we were on the same page all the time, pretty much all the time. And so we didn't let the kids appeal to one of us or the other. We really participated in their upbringing, and we talked all that through, and that's good. We have good relationships with our kids, both of us, and that was really necessary too, because my daughter got unbelievably sick for massive amounts of time, and my son, we had to ignore him a lot because he just wasn't dying. So it was like, kid, sorry, like we got a problem here, and he was great, man. He just rode through that like a master. But if we hadn't sorted out our child rearing philosophy, let's say, it would have sunk us for sure. Really? Because it was so close to the edge that, few marriages survive the death of a child, and no wonder, but the serious illness of a child is also an unbelievable stressor. And, we sailed through that as well as could be hoped. You kind of know that because you look back and you think, well, do we regret? Right? And of course, there's the odd regret. One thing, when you have a sick child, you have this terrible conundrum all the time of, well, how hard do you push them? Mm-hmm. When do you allow the illness to be a reason that they aren't doing something? When do you allow them to use the illness as a reason that they're not doing something? Well, it's really, really hard to get that right. And sometimes we pushed harder than we should have and misunderstood too. Mm-hmm. But at least we did that together. And my wife, I've seen many, many women protect their children from the father. They don't trust him. And so every time he interacts with the child, they'll do something disapproving. A look, they'll put him down. Now, it's not like men don't do that to their wives. There's all sorts of tricks that men have for their wives. Mm-hmm. Men are very good at turning their wives into drudges, for example, for a variety of reasons, which we can go into. But if you don't trust men, you won't let them have a hand in the children, the discipline of the children. And when you think of discipline, you think of punishment and threat and dad saying no. That isn't discipline. Discipline is discipline. If you discipline someone properly, they become disciplined, right? That means they're competent.
They're organized. They have structure. They
can control themselves. So I'll give you an example. When my son is quite a disagreeable person by nature. So he's very masculine. He's very high in emotional stability. So he doesn't have much negative emotion. And he's relatively low in agreeableness. And that's typical masculine pattern. Now, the two big personality differences between men and women are agreeableness, women are higher, and neuroticism, tendency to feel negative emotion, women are higher. So what that meant was that when he was a kid, he was a stubborn little pup. It was hard to get him to do what he didn't want to do. And, that's the mark of a character that is hard to stop. So there's real advantages to it. But kids who are disagreeable are a handful because they think, I'm not doing that. And you can't make me.
Right.
He was really quite good at that.
And is it one of your rules from the first book? Like, don't let your kids do anything that would make you
dislike them.
Yeah.
Yes. And we should talk about that because that's such a good rule, I think. But the rule for him was, he'd push the limits in a variety of ways. And he was really good at that and quite persistent at it. And I'd talk to my wife and say, look, Julian's getting a little too pushy here. We have to crack down on him and stop him. And this is what I see. And she'd say, this is what I see. And we'd think, well, this is what we're going for a week. He isn't going to get away with anything. Like the line, man. It's like, kid, he'd be 3 or 3.5 at this time. Sit on the steps. Sit on the steps. And if he wouldn't, because he was stubborn, well, I'd bring him over and put him on the steps. Like it was, if I say you're going to sit on the steps, you are absolutely going to sit on the steps. So it was so interesting to watch him because he'd be angry, because he got interfered with. He didn't get to do what he wanted to do. And he would go and sit on the steps, but he'd be like mad as hell on the way there, arms pumping up and down and just, he'd go sit on the steps like this, just overcome with anger. And the rule was, as soon as you get yourself under control and you can act like a civilized human being and you want to have a good day, then you come and tell me and that's it, you're done. But it had to be real. And look, my criteria for accepting his statement was whether or not I liked him when he said it. If he was still if he was still misbehaving and bending the rules, he wouldn't be genuine when he talked to me.
Right.
But if he came and said, okay, Dad, like I've had enough. I've got myself under control. I'd rather have a good day. And as soon as he said that I liked him, it was like, hey, man, you're back in the party.
Do what you want to do. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want him to sit on the steps anymore. I liked having him around. So
sure.
So, but we were on board with that. And so the discipline, so the thing is, see, what was the discipline aspect, which is what I was talking about, is he learned how to integrate it into his personality. And I could see him doing that sitting on the steps. It was just this aggression circuit, which is unbelievably powerful, was just dominating him. And he just force it, get it under control, calm down, bring yourself back into the social world. And it was a victory for his developing ego, you see, because he wasn't defeated by his own impulses. And that's discipline, you see. Then you're not defeated by your own impulses. And so discipline has the wrong connotation. I was encouraging him. You can master this, man. And it worked. And it was so useful to us later because when Michaela got so sick, he was together. We could rely on him.
Mm-hmm.
So it was necessary.
Yeah.
And it hasn't stopped being necessary. And he's a very reliable person who does what he wants. It's a great combination.